Welcome back to the toolkit for the fresh rape victim. I felt like last episode was a bit difficult, both for me, but for some of you as well. Memory is very individual. Some of us don't remember a lot, and some of us remember every little detail. And most of us would be somewhere in between with some fragmented, broken, specific elements of memory. That's the image that I remember from childhood. I remember the frame with the lighting, and I remember this visual that I looked at while I was hoping this whole thing would come to an end. A piece of ceiling with a certain light and a certain shadow on it means so much for me, but obviously it's only in my memory. I was talking to a good friend of mine. We know each other for 10 years, and we always had a very strong connection. She was raped for 5 years by her stepfather. 5 years. It makes my few months feel like nothing. She remembered the way he looked at her in certain angles of the house. The bit of wall we were looking at while it was taking place, they were very vague. It's this one tool that normal people have, and they can trust their memory, and we cannot. Some of us cannot trust it because the memory failed them before and they don't remember what they went through. Some of us are haunted by our memory. Some of us are doing our best to not remember. We're probably 30 or 40% more likely to use drugs, to use alcohol in order to blur our memory even farther. Sometimes denial is the only way in which we can contain that. Denial has circles. It can be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. If you're now in denial and it's comfortable, stay there. Honestly, don't push yourself. When it comes, and it comes when we need to deal with that. When I was 25, a good friend that knew me since I was 6 years old reminded me that when we were children and we would play in my house, I would always scare them and challenge them, dare them, to see if they're brave enough to go to the basement where bad things happened. In any aware level, I didn't think about that, but the fact is that I did scare my friends. I tried to share the horror I felt from that place with my friends. One time I challenged them and they went to the basement and nothing bad happened. And I remember feeling very humiliated because I did experience this place as a very scary place where bad things happen to children. And from that moment on, I could only be in a room with the door closed. So I developed a certain behavior that came out of this trauma. And those behaviors served me in dealing with that fear. I only remember one image out of few months. When I was 15 and I started remembering, the first time I asked my mother really kind of, why do I have those flashbacks of rape? And like, I don't get that. And then she asked me, you don't remember? And I said no. And from the little I told her after the event, and from the little she knew from the police and the polygraph, she basically helped me reconstruct my memory. So when I heard about the polygraph, my initial reaction was, oh, thank God, there is an outside proof, exterior thing, which I can trust, so I don't need to trust my incapable memory. And only a few years later, I was wondering, why was there need in polygraph? I mean, I was 5. I'm not talking about the legal way, and I can see why you need a proof and whatever. Sometimes the way society responds to us makes us question ourselves even farther. Why did it take her 15 years to complain? Why did she wait 10 years until she spoke about it? You know what? Because usually we don't even remember it or cannot even cope with that before that, so it takes us time, motherfuckers. And excuse me for this brute sound, it's obviously not to you. But it really bugs me when people say, oh, how come it took her 10 years? Really? Let's see you guys. The third time I was raped, it was under drug rape. But the thing is that I didn't know. It took me almost 10 years to realize I was drugged. I knew I was raped. I was in a wedding, I had my first drink, and the next thing I remembered was waking up in a corridor of the hotel with this guy that I only met that evening inside of me. And I remember switching on, waking up, and pushing him out, but having no idea I got there. For so many years I told myself, I was probably drunk, it's my responsibility, I wasn't in control, because I was in this stage so used to taking responsibility on myself, to taking guilt and blame on myself. I just kind of did it automatically. years to understand I was drugged, and that actually it was really not my fault. And I only understood it when I heard this other woman in a TV show in Israel speaking about drug rape. She described the waking up. It's like you've been switched off and all of a sudden you switch back on. Your awareness is gone and all of a sudden you're back. You know where you are, but you don't know how you got there. The moment I heard this description, I knew beyond any doubt. 12 years later, for the first time, I actually understood what happened. Beside the pain, the insult, and the injury of being raped, when your memory has been taken from you, when you've been drugged, it's almost like another level of emptying you from who you are. I worked with my therapists in all sorts of methods so I could remember that image without feeling nauseous. I used to be a bit cynical about that. Yeah, I can remember the image and not throw up. But when you're haunted by your memories, it's definitely better to feel them without being nauseous. Next time we'll talk about anxieties, social anxieties and men anxieties. Yes, until then. Thank you for your support and for your share. Be strong. Be nice to yourself. And I'm sending you a big hug. See you soon.